Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Points in the Paint. I am Sam, and I'm joined by Danny. Tonight, we're going to talk about some basketball. NBA season is getting ready to kick off tomorrow, so we're going to do a little preview and talk about just all things NBA.
Yeah, man, it's season's looking good. I'm ready for tomorrow. I know, like for me with the gambling aspect of it, I've been looking at these lines for like over a week now. I've been itching and waiting, but yeah, especially with all the deadlines for the extensions today, I think it's this week's going to be really fun.
Mhm. Yeah, I looked at some bets earlier today too, and some of the player prop ups were kind of crazy. Like they had Jokic points, rebounds, and assists over 50. And I'm just like, it's just so hard to tell what's going to happen that first game. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the season. And speaking of extensions, yeah, we just seen that Giannis just signed a 3-year extension with the Bucks. Obviously, we haven't been on for a while, and we know a couple weeks ago, Damian Lillard got traded from Portland to Milwaukee to team up with Giannis and Chris Middleton and the Bucks and try to bring home another championship to Milwaukee. So I think that extension will probably keep Giannis and Dame in Milwaukee for at least 3 more years, if I'm correct. I guess 4 if you count this year. So well timed on the Bucks' part.
Yeah, and that was definitely something that I remember a couple of months ago. There was the big thing when they asked Giannis if he signed an extension, and he said if they're not trying to aim for a championship and building a contender, then he wasn't going to sign an extension. So it was really good that they made that trade. I mean, obviously, anyone that's a Bucks fan, they all love Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
But it was a trade you had to make. It's the same thing with it reminds me of like the Kawhi Leonard trade when no one in Toronto wanted to lose DeRozan, but you got a championship out of it, so you kind of just take the good with the bad there.
Yeah. It's really, we as fans, we look at it from that perspective. But as obviously being a player, could you imagine like you're living in Portland and all of a sudden, you got to move to Milwaukee, you got to move here, just relocating all over. So that's just the dynamics of sports that we're never a part of or privy to of. And just speaking of, the Bucks, do you think they're the favorites to come out of the East, after adding Dame? Do you have another team in the East that you're leaning towards?
I think if it's I'm cautious on them this year. I think because that's a whole new dynamic for both of them that they both have to get through is going from it's just me and hopefully someone gives me an extra 15 to where now it's two players who at any point can go off. If it's not them, it's got to be the Celtics. I think the Sixers window is closed, and I just don't see anyone else coming out of the East except for those two teams.
Yeah, I think the Celtics are loaded, and I could totally see the Celtics coming out of the East. Adding Porzingis and Drew Holiday is big. I mean, obviously losing Smart for Boston was probably a bad move, but Boston drafted a guy, and I saw him play this year too. He's in college basketball. Looking up his name now, but he can literally come in and do everything that Marcus Smart did. He's already a defensive guy, anyways. I can't think of his name. Oh, there he goes, Jordan Walsh. And he played at Arkansas, and I remember watching him. They beat Kansas in the NCAA tournament this past season, and yeah, he's 6'6", so he's just he can come in and play defense. He can play defense right now for NBA teams. So if he can give you that defense that Marcus Smart used to give you, along with Derek White, and along with Drew Holiday, you can replace Marcus Smart, defensively, and then Drew Holiday's playmaking, Derek White's playmaking and shooting. So I think Boston is still probably the prohibitive favorites to come out of the East. I'm looking at the roster now, and Kristaps, Porzingis, and they still got Al Horford. Losing Robert Williams kind of sucked too. They might leave them a little vulnerable in the paint, but I think Boston is probably a team to beat in the East. And I agree with you on Philly that their window has closed for Philly.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for me with the Celtics was Holiday is a good replacement for Smart. He gives you a little bit less of the defensive energy, but he's going to give you more scoring wise. But the big thing is Robert Williams. To me, I thought that was really shocking. They put him in the trade because also with losing Grant Williams, you're leaving your your front court up to a 36-year-old Al Horford and Porzingis, who hasn't played a full season but once in his career. So you're really kind of banking on him to stay healthy. And I mean, looking at it, you got, like you said, Walsh, but then the only real big man you have is Luke Cornett, who can't really play more than 10, 15 minutes a game. So you really got to hope, you're really relying on Porzingis to stay healthy this year with that kind of aggressive physical play that Boston's been playing.
Wonder if they're going to look to maybe add another veteran big man, signing somebody. I know Dwight Howard's name's been floated around a lot. It's backup big potentially. What's the other guy? They had a Greg Monroe last year. Maybe they might bring him back too. He's only 33. If they did, if that's the case. But I definitely agree with they're going to need to shore up their interior paint defense because that's going to be a problem as the season goes along. But there's still some other teams in the East like the Clevelands and Miami's. I mean, I think Miami will probably be a top 6 team. And they'll play their best basketball in May. But looking at the Eastern Conference now, the Knicks are going to be, they're going to be tough. The Knicks, I think they'll probably be top 4, top 5 in the East. I don't know if they can come out the East, but they're going to be tough. Tom Thibodeau teams play hard. And I've been watching a lot of the Brooklyn Nets in the preseason, and Ben Simmons, he's looking good. Brooklyn could be a scary team. I don't know how far they can go. But, I mean, if you look at their starting lineup, like Simmons is 6'10", Bridges is like 6'8", Cam Johnson 6'10", Claxton 6. They got a lot of length in Dinwiddie. So I think Brooklyn, they might be a 500 team. I like what Indiana did in the offseason. I don't know. I like what Orlando's been doing. They got a lot of young talent. Cleveland, I think, would be up there as well, building off last year. Not sure what to expect with Toronto. But yeah, the East is you have obviously your top tiers. You have your Boston, your Milwaukee's, and then you have your second tiers, like the New York Knicks and Cleveland, and I mean, heck, even Atlanta. Like what's Atlanta going to do this year with Murray and Trae Young back? So it'll be interesting to see how the East unfolds. Still, it's just really, really too early to tell. Just because we haven't seen anything and we haven't even accounted for injuries yet. So,
yeah, and I think like you said, the Pacers are really high on my list. I think as much as being in New York, Obi Toppin is like the spirit of the Knicks. Like he's one of the fans, but he had to. I think he had to go, and he's gonna get actual opportunity in a system that fits him a lot better out in Indy. I think the team for me to watch this year is the Bulls because if they struggle to start, then I think they're going to pull the plug. I think they're going to send DeRozan and Levine out somewhere. They're definitely like at a point now. I think they were looking one year to fight for a top 3 spot, and now they're looking at fighting for a play-in spot and hoping they can keep up with teams like Toronto and Atlanta. So I think a struggle for them to start, or even like a couple injuries, it's gonna force them to just go ahead and pull the plug on it and try to rebuild around, whatever you can get for DeRozan and Levine and Desan Mu, and if you can keep Pat Williams.
Yeah, I didn't mention the Bulls because I don't know what to expect for them. I'm hoping that they play off that continuity that they have last year. Obviously, DeMar and Zach's been playing together for a while. Same thing with Kobe. So a lot of the core has been together, Vucevic. But I do agree, like if it doesn't pan out at the beginning of the season, I can see the Bulls being sellers. I can see Billy Donovan being let go of. The thing that kills me with the Bulls is our player development. So our young guys haven't developed as rapidly as other guys. Like Pat Williams hasn't developed as much as he should. I think at this point, Kobe White, he's going on his 5th year. Desumi. So our young guys had to develop. Dolan Terry, I want to see what he can do. How is his development going? So even if you do get rid of DeMar and Zach, and you get rid of Donovan, you gotta address that player development aspect if you're the Chicago Bulls, and that's literally why I left them out of the equation. They're like the biggest question mark, and I know like they've been projected to have a really bad season, but I'm hoping continuity kicks in, and I mean they. From top to bottom, they do have a roster. They have bigs. They got Vucevic. They got Drummond. They got wing players. They got perimeter guys. did we solve the point guard problem? I'm not sure. So only time will tell with the Bulls. So that'd be another big question mark.
Yeah, and the big thing is I honestly think they could survive another year if they get rid of Donovan this year before the rebuild. Because if you look at the way his systems worked in the NBA, it's only worked for the Thunder because the system was get the ball to one person and let everyone else stand at the side. And when he's trying to run that system around DeRozan, it's hurting the team more than it's helping. And I mean, if you watch the games last year, Levine could go off for 40 and they would still give the ball to DeRozan with 10 seconds left. Yeah. So I think him going is the first step before they do anything. But with DeRozan wanting to go out to LA and the Clippers, Clippers and the Lakers both kind of were looking at him at the trade deadline last year. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in California by the end of the season.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And Donovan could tweak his system, just more ball movement can be, make this team so much more better. They have other weapons. Obviously, Zach and DeMar can easily go off, but then getting guys like Pat Williams, good looks, in their comfort zones, Kobe White, Vucevic, throwing the ball down to him in the post. You have a balanced team. So, yeah, Donovan's kind of got to tweak his scheme, and I don't know if he's going to do that at this point. So we'll see with them. Want to see how Philadelphia does this year with all that James Harden chatter. I was kind of hoping he'd be moved before the season started. But I think even last week I read an article about how they tried to trade him to the Clippers for Terrence Mann, and the Clippers rejected that trade. They didn't want to let go of Terrence Mann for James Harden. So that's really, really telling if you're James Harden, like to where you're at now. But Philly right now, as it currently stands, they wouldn't be able to really challenge much teams. Regular season they might be good, but I don't think they'd have enough in the playoffs to even get out the first round. So,
yeah, I think this is another season that if they can't get that trade done, it's going to be Embiid having to put up an MVP type performance to keep them alive. I was actually shocked about the Terrence Mann thing too. I had seen something that it kind of made a little bit more sense because Kawhi has a player option at the end of this year, and if he decides to go free agency and they don't sign him, I know a couple people have been saying over the last year or two that he's the way the Clippers have been played, he might not re-sign. If you have to, do a short rebuild, Terrence Mann's going to be more of your guy than hoping maybe if we bring in James Harden for 1 year, that'll help. Because if they did that trade, then that's going to instantly start the rebuild. And as a Thunder fan, I'm wanting that because that means we get an unprotected first round pick that's going to be a top 10 pick for the next 3 years. So I'll gladly take that. But the thing with Harden is he's ruined his trade value just by every time, if anything doesn't go his way, he's just, all right, I want out. Like everyone talks about Kyrie did it in, Brooklyn. He did it in Cleveland. But James Harden has done it 4 times now, going to where he wanted. He's even admitted to saying like that, I thought this winning a chip was going to be easy if I played with 2 other star players. And then he keeps going, bouncing team by team. So I don't think he's at the level he used to be that's worth a rental.
Yeah. I agree. You said the Thunder on your team?
Oh yeah, OKC fan.
Man, you guys have like 30 draft picks.
That's why I'm hoping we just get rid of some draft picks. Like at this point, take Malcolm Brogdon or take back Jeremy Grant or get some kind of veteran on your team and give one of these struggling teams like 2 or 3 of your picks. By the end of the next 5 years, the first 10 picks in the draft are going to all be the Thunder picks.
Yeah, it's crazy. But they're sitting pretty, then we can kind of jump over to the Western Conference. I love the Thunder's backcourt with Shea and Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey's one of my favorite point guards, just the way he orchestrates the offense and the way he moves the ball. I think OKC's going to take that next step this year, too. They'll probably be in the playoffs, especially Chet could stay healthy. They have so much young talent. Like they could just, these teams are just young. They just don't know any better. So definitely think they're primed to make the playoffs this year in the West. But obviously in the West, you have your heavy hitters. You have Phoenix. You have Denver coming off the championship. And then you have Phoenix with, the big three with Durant, Booker, and Beal. And then you have your other teams too: Golden State, Clippers, Lakers, Sacramento, Memphis, Dallas. All these teams are expecting, the Pelicans, if they can stay healthy, all these teams are gonna, be buying, to try to knock off Denver. So in the Western Conference, who would you say is the top of the top right now?
See, and so that's interesting. I think the West has more questions than the East because a lot of teams, if they didn't make a big roster adjustment, it was small key ones. I still, until I'm proven wrong, it's Denver's conference because when you watch them play, they don't even look like they're trying, and part of that's because Jokic really just does not care about basketball and he's putting up those kind of numbers, but. You got a guy who's just casually walking on the floor putting up 30 and 15 a game. I'll take that team almost every single time. Because we saw it too when he actually tried in the playoffs, he was putting up like Wilt Chamberlain like numbers. I think other than that, I don't see anyone other than Phoenix competing this year. I think the Warriors start their decline this year. I don't think the Lakers have the Lakers don't have what they need to get to that level. I think they can make a Western Conference Finals again, but I just don't, unless they make a couple trades at the deadline, I just don't think they have what it takes to get over that hump. And then everyone else, I think, is just fighting for some kind of like conference semifinal or conference final appearance.
Yeah, the thing that I think, I don't know. Well, Denver, they still got obviously Jamal Murray and Jokic and Aaron Gordon. I wonder how much is going to be a loss. I wonder how much is going to affect them losing Bruce Brown and losing Bruce Brown, high energy guy off their bench. Obviously they're still a deep team. I like Christian Braun kind of stepping into that role and being that sixth man. But yeah, Denver's obviously one of the complete team. So you kind of want to put them up there by default. Phoenix, I don't know. I'm still, because those three, the big three, they get hurt so much, nicked up so much. I don't imagine them all playing a full season. But I know Phoenix did make some moves like getting Nurkic and getting some other complementary pieces around them. So I still think Phoenix can be good. I just got to see what they do on the defensive end. But fortunately, they have a defensive-minded coach in Frank Vogel. The Lakers, I think the Lakers too can also, with LeBron being 38, going on 39, and AD being injury prone, I can see them also suffering and having a decline this year too. I still think they'll have enough to make the playoffs, but how far they go in the playoffs is going to be a whole nother subject, just depending on the health of LeBron and AD. Some nice young upstart teams in the West. I like Sacramento. I think they'll definitely do their thing. I want to see what Minnesota does this year. Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. I mean, Anthony Edwards is probably going to have a really good year. Golden State. I think Golden State needs to add some more veterans. I don't know if they're intending to start CP3. I don't think that's a good move. I'd rather he come off the bench. But we'll see with Golden State. And then Memphis, you really can't judge Memphis until Ja comes back. They just lost Steven Adams, so that's kind of tough. But I think the Pelicans, if Zion stays healthy, they could be a force. Brandon Ingram, Zion, CJ McCollum, not to mention all the other pieces. So I think the Pelicans might be a team to watch because they were, at the top of the Western Conference last year up until Brandon Ingram got hurt. And then the Clippers, I bet the Clippers would be one of the top teams too, maybe top 5, top 6. But that just it depends on the health of their star players too. So much of this comes down to just health of the players, because a lot of the stars get hurt, and especially with the Clippers, Kawhi and Paul George. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing for the Grizzlies that, and I mentioned this actually on my show last week, was without Ja for the first 25 games, you still have Jackson, you still have Bane, You still have a couple guys that can, put the ball in the basket and have shown when Ja was out that they could, go off for 30, go off for 40. But their first 25 games that he's out, they face Miami twice. They face the Clippers and the Lakers, Boston, Denver, New Orleans, Minnesota. His first game back, they're playing the Clippers, and then they have the Kings and the Lakers in the next 5 games. So they have a super tough schedule to start. So I think if they can come out of the first 25 games close to maybe 5 games over 500, I would say they'll be fine this year, because they're going to have an easier schedule once Morant gets into his rhythm. But if this team struggles in the first month and a half, if they're struggling by the time we hit the Christmas break, then I think you got to really look at how they're going to handle the rest of the season. It was a great move bringing in 2 extra vets, because the big thing they talked about last year was that Steven Adams is the only one on that team above 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a bunch of you have a 28-year-old having to be in charge of a bunch of essentially college kids, and now you put in Marcus Smart, who is not going to put up with any of that, and then you have Derrick Rose, who's been to hell and back in his career and kind of knows how to go through all these the stretches, the losing players, stuff like that, could really kind of help guide them.
Yeah, I agree. It just NBA's, man, really comes down to attrition. You see that all the time. Guys get hurt, and a key guy here and there, and just literally derail the season. If the Grizzlies can't stay afloat, I think that they can. And if they get healthy, who knows? What they could do. Josh so explosive, and then obviously playing down in Memphis, they just feed off that crowd. Interesting. I want to see what the T-Wolves do this year too. More so, really, Towns. I think the T-Wolves might be on the cusp of maybe breaking it up, making a move or something. If they don't, if nothing happens this season, obviously they're going to keep Anthony Edwards, but it might be time to move Towns or Gobert or one of them. And see what you can get from one of them. I don't know if you want to have both of those guys on the same team. It might be just really bad spacing, but
yeah, Gobert that was arguably one of the worst trades I've ever seen. I understand the star power level, it helps your defense a bit, but what makes Anthony Edwards great is that, he can give you 20 from behind the arc, but if you let him get ahead of steam, he's going to put you on a poster every single time.
Yeah.
And with Cat and Naz Reid, it's great because they can stretch the floor, they can stand on the perimeter, or even if their shot's not there, you have to respect their shot at least. If you see Rudy Gobert anywhere outside of 3 feet from the paint, you just know he's not going to do anything but set a screen or give a handoff. So it kind of hurt his game. He had to obviously adjust, but I think if they can, no one's going to take Rudy Gobert's contract, and that's the problem. But if they can find a way to incorporate some kind of a jumper for Rudy Gobert at least, or some way to keep him away from the paint to give Edwards the room to jump, then I think they could potentially finish the season top 4.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing, I always go back and harken on Cat because Cat shoots a lot of threes. And I'm not going to tell him not to shoot those threes because that's his strength, but I just want to see him mix it up a little bit more. Maybe go down low a couple times. Heck, right, you could run pick and roll with Anthony Edwards. And that 2-man game will still be good, but I'd like to just see Karl Anthony Towns playing the post a little bit more and then step out. But he just wants to shoot threes. And I think that kind of hurt his development because I had a conversation with somebody and he literally could be at the same tier as Giannis and Jokic, talent wise, to, be in the MVP conversation, but because he limits his game by just shooting threes, then that kind of hurts him because he's never really been hurt. He's not an explosive guy. He keeps kind of flat-footed, so he's not. But he's still mobile enough where he could, be a defensive presence, block shots, and he can literally he can make plays for other guys. He's not going to make plays like Jokic, but he can pass out of a double team and make the right pass. So he can easily be a top 5 player if he really busted his butt. But it's just not in his DNA. I think he just wants to he wants to shoot. So um, Minnesota will be a nice another team we're watching. See what happens with them this year. And yeah, because they couldn't even move Gobert because I don't even know who would take Gobert. I'm looking at the roster now, and I don't know who. Heck, yeah, I can't see a team that will really trade for him that really needs him. Maybe Atlanta. If they need.
I mean, you could even argue that if Boston really needed the defensive effort added in, they could get him. But then again, when majority of your offense is Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum trying to get to the paint and playing bully ball, I think the good thing with Robert Williams is although he wasn't a good shooter, he was too small to be a big target down low, so you kind of just forgot he was there for a couple minutes at a time. But you got a 7-footer who can't do anything outside of the restricted circle. So, and it just pretty much says, okay, well, we'll just collapse on you because you're going to dump it to a guy that we're already double teaming.
Yeah, I know trading Robert Williams is big. But so that means him and DeAndre Ayton are both on Portland. And I mean, you're not going to start both of them because I think Grant starts the power forward. Robert Williams coming off the bench, but he might be a guy that he might be on the market. He might be getting moved here pretty soon. Teams getting moved here pretty soon too. I could see teams asking for him. I know he's kind of had some injury problems too the last couple of years, but I mean he's only making $11 million this year, so a team could easily fit him into their salary cap and yeah, I want to see what else Portland does with him. I think Portland might move him, and then they'd probably keep Ayton because Ayton's only like 24 or something, or 25, yeah. And
Well, and Williams is good in spurts. That's the thing was you had your starting center only playing about 18 to 20 minutes a game because he was just high energy for 4 or 5 minutes, and then if you kept him out any longer, he was going to either get into foul trouble or get too tired to play.
Yeah,
and I think off the bench in Portland is honestly a really good role for him because if you need to play two bigs, you could have him and Ayton down there. But if not, with most of the players they kept last year that's on their second unit were just like slingshotters. They were just pulling up any chance they could, and they didn't have anyone to rebound. So at least having a guy who can eat off the glass can really kind of help that and help kind of look for better shots and not just fling it up and get back on D.
Yeah. So many question marks, man. So many question marks. It's going to be definitely a interesting NBA season. I'm trying to think if we touched on everything. Couple guys signed some extensions. The Dallas Mavericks, Josh Green, McDaniels from the Wolves, and I can't say this name, Okungwu from the Okongwu from the Atlanta Hawks. Yeah,
he's gonna take Capella's spot by the end of this year. I think he's he's Clint Capella but 24.
I forgot they had Clint. Yes, Atlanta he has
Clint. Everything I've seen, like in every trend I've seen, is just, and it's not like Capella's struggling. It's just, would you rather take the 24-year-old you signed for like 10, 15 million, or would you rather take the 30-year-old that's going to want at least 20 million a year? And at least with this, you have like for another at least 3 years, you have a pick and roll partner for Trey every year. And if they can get back to that, then he's going to be great. I think if they're not in a playoff spot this year, I could see Capella getting traded for some draft picks, and they could try to go after a power forward to fit John Collins' spot, or small forwards, they can move DeAndre Hunter to the 4. But I think they trading John Collins too, I think it just made it that the big 3 now is going to be Murray, Trey, and Okongwu down low.
I forgot they had Clint Capella.
I know he's just so silent. He just casually just puts up 10 and 10, and you forget he's there. What's your thought on the Rockets this year? Because I think that's a team that I think a lot of people are still expecting them to be not the best, but they brought in a couple really good pieces.
I want to see the Thompson twin as Amen Thompson. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him. And then I like their center, Sengun.
Yeah,
I even said it last year, but they should run their offense through him. So if they and they did do that at Spurs, can get the like have him initiate the offense, kind of like how Memphis used to do with Marc Gasol. Um, or I guess how Denver kind of does with Jokic in a sense. But yeah, if they run their offense through him, I think that can help all the other perimeter guys like Jalen Green and Fred Van Fleet. Because I watched some of their games last year, and a lot of times like Jalen Green um, and Kevin Porter Jr. They were jacking them shots. They just weren't playing the right way. And I know John Wall kind of spoke on that and exposed them. So I like their other guy too, Smith. I think it's Jabari Smith. They drafted last year. I think he's looked really good in summer league. I'm trying to pull up the roster now, but I think you'll have a solid season. Dylan Brooks, as long as he keeps his head down and stays out of trouble, I think he can.
Yeah, but that ain't happening.
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, this is personality. I forgot they got Reggie Bullock too, so they got some shooting. Aaron Holiday, he's a veteran backup guard. They got Victor Oladipo in that trade. I'm not sure if he's going to stay or not, but yeah, I really want to see what Amen Thompson can do, and I want to see how Jabari Smith does in the second year, and just want to see a lot of their young guys like Cam Whitmore. What do those guys bring to the table? You know, I already know what you're going to get from Fred Van Fleet, and they got Jeff Green, but how do the young talent and the veterans in that team blend together? They got Ime Udoka as their coach, and he's a really good coach, so I'm sure he'll get the most out of them. So
yeah, I really like the Fred Van Vliet signing just because at first I was confused because if Jalen Green's got the ball in his hand every play, why do you need another point guard? But I think it's especially with like the more when you watch the Rockets last year, the more if they missed a shot and the other team scored, they were flinging a shot the first 5 seconds. They weren't moving it. They weren't looking for a shot. They were just whoever got the first look was taking it. And I think that's what's good. I think Jalen Green might have a little bit of a down year to start just because he's going from a system from the last 6-7 years of his career of let Jalen Green do what he wants to okay, now you gotta work through a system. It's not just Jalen Green and 4 bench players. It's Jalen Green and an NBA champion and Jalen Green and a top defensive player and two big men that can facilitate the offense. So I think Fred Van Vliet's probably there just to almost like just to slow it down for whenever they get into that situation where it's just we're flinging shots. But I actually wouldn't be surprised if maybe not this year, but if they're still struggling next year, he could potentially be on the trade block. That's someone just if you're like, hey, Fred Van Vliet, if you're like, hey, we're a lot farther behind than we thought we were. Let's try to get a couple draft picks and some players out of it. But that's a long shot. That's a couple years away. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if they sneak into the play-in this year.
It'll be hard to trade Fred Van Fleet though in that contract, $40 million.
Yeah, but there's someone that'll take it like last year of his deal and just like, oh, we'll give him the money this year and pay the taxes on it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they come together. They got, you said, they got some young guys, and then they got some veterans like Van Fleet, Jeff Green, Oladipo if he comes back. But I think Oladipo hurt his quad last year, so I don't know if he'll come back right away. Yeah, I think he's out still. They said game GTD. I don't know what that means.
Game time decision. So that he's probably not going to play against Orlando.
No.
But I think also a team in that same division that I think not just because of who they drafted, but just kind of formed, I think is going to be really good is San Antonio. Because you got Wembanyama, but you have 4 other starters that are like fully committed to whatever it takes to win. They're starting Sochan. I think if I read it right, they're starting him at point guard.
Really?
Yeah, they had him doing reps at point guard in practice and a couple. think they're wanting to try to convert him into a little bit what Ben Simmons is.
Mm-hmm.
As a big 6'8", 6'9" point guard that if you need to, you could put him down in the post, but if not, let him run the offense because he facilitated well last year.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of the Trevor Jones brother, I can't remember if it's Trey or Tyus, but
Trey John.
Yeah, outside of him, I mean, your backup point guard is Devontae Graham. He's not looking to facilitate; he's looking for his points.
Yeah.
So I think having a big man like that, so it can kind of clear the space for Wembanyama down low, is going to be really good for them this year. And other than Wembanyama, everyone on that team has been under Popovich's system now for at least 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So you got guys that are now starting to understand the system, and I think they're I think another team that could probably sneak in top 10, top 12 at least.
The Spurs.
Yeah,
they got some. Look at their team now. They got Keldon Johnson, who's been there for a couple of years, and yeah, he was the go-to guy there, but. I mean, he could still get his and play off Wembanyama. I think having Wembanyama is going to make everybody's better. I mean, they still got Trey Jones. Devontae Graham will be able to play off Wembanyama because he's shooting, so he can space the floor. And then, what's this guy's name? Doug McDermott. They got. He's a shooter. Graham's a shooter. I think Zach Collins. I think he could shoot. Can't remember.
Yeah, he's a decent shooter, and they just signed him to an extension. So I think it's going to be him and Wembanyama down through most of the year. Even their two-way guys that are going to be in their G League most of the season, like City's Kasoko was solid in summer league.
Mm-hmm.
They just signed Bediako to a contract. He didn't do half bad. I think he's one of those guys. They just got him off the hustle.
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, and then this guy's just my favorite Spur player just from his name, Sir Jabari Rice. He had like 25 a game in the in like the 2 summer league games he played in. Like his stats are good. And Popovich is one of those coaches where if a player is not playing well, he's just going to sit him regardless of it. So I think they built this roster to really complement each other. I mean, there's the one thing I see is just not everyone. There's not a lot of pure defensive players on this team, but when you have a 7-7 center, you don't really need any lockdown players down low. But
no.
I think the big problem I saw a lot last year was they didn't have a lot of shooting, and they kept McDermott. They really focused on getting Keldon Johnson and Vassell and Branham their shots to kind of get their shot in rhythm. So I think I'm excited to see them play this year. I know they're going to be the big name to watch just because of Wembanyama, but I'm really watching everyone else this year.
I think they can buy into the whole team. They really buy into team defense and just obviously Wembanyama's racing shots, but they'll play hard on the defensive end. Just because you're going to have to for Pop. He's not going to just stand pat for that. But I think they'll definitely be competitive and gritty. And it always just kills me with some of these teams, and they just say they're just a bad defensive team because defense is really just effort, man. It's just moving your feet. It's not anything special. I mean, talking on defense too, communicating. It goes a long way. But it's just effort, and a lot of guys obviously aren't going to play a lot of defense early on. I get it. Like, but when the playoffs come, you want to step it up a notch. But that's all defense comes down to is effort. I've seen, I watched some guys who kind of just like won't even really try on defense and this and that. So, I mean, that's going to really determine how far you're going to go in the postseason. You can't tell me there's a team that's won the NBA championship but did not play good defense. I mean, look at Denver last year. They got the defensive dogs like Bruce Brown and Aaron Gordon, KCP. These are known defenders. But all those guys were coming in there and just playing defense. Murray was playing defense. Christian Braun was. I mean, Jokic is probably the only one that doesn't play defense. No, he doesn't play defense. He's just slow.
I mean, he's just so big and brolic. Yeah. There's not much you can do with it. You just kind of just let it happen.
Exactly. It's not like everybody else around them is just swarming to the ball. So you're gonna have to commit to defense if you're gonna want to win a championship. We all know that. So yeah.
That's why I like the Bruce Brown move so much,
Yeah.
because if the big thing with the Pacers last year is they were giving up 130 a game.
Oh,
And
geez.
it wasn't even just, oh, we're giving up this many points. It was, we're giving up this many points, and it was mostly to guards. If you look at like the players that had the most points, unless it was like Trae Young, who dropped a 40-point, Shea dropped a 50-point game, Brunson had a couple great games against them, Jaylen Brown. So because you obviously have Miles Turner down low,
Mm-hmm.
and there's you don't really need as much defensive effort when you have a guy that can average almost 3 blocks a game down there. But the big thing is between Halliburton and Hield, you don't have anyone that has any kind of defensive focus. They're too focused on offense. And I think obviously, you can slowly put that into Halliburton when you have a 6'7" guard with a 7-foot wingspan. But getting Bruce Brown, who can guard the positions that Miles Turner can't, I think is really going to. That's why I'm so high on that. I think they might make the playoffs this year. And they got him on such a good deal where if, let's say injury bug hits and, they're that team that, oh, we got to keep the rebuild going because we just got hit with the injury bug. He's on a trade-friendly contract. They can get a couple draft picks out of him too.
And we also got Obi Toppin. He played defense for the Knicks, and he's improved. So I think he'll give them effort defensively too. Bruce Brown's a pest defensively, and TJ McConnell's always been a defensive pest like that. They got Buddy Hield doesn't play defense at all, but
No.
I like Isaiah Jackson too. He went to Kentucky. He's 6'9", 6'10". I think he can help on the perimeter as well. So yeah, just got to shore stuff up on the perimeter. And Rick Carlisle is their coach. He preaches defense too. So yeah, but yeah, getting some defensive guys, dogs in your locker room will definitely help improve your defense overall. We've definitely seen that. So I could see I could see the Pacers taking the next step. I love that they got Bruce Brown and Obi Toppin because I think Tyrese Halliburton's going to have some. Those are both good players who can score off the ball. Especially Bruce Brown, he's just going to benefit. Obi Toppin, I was watching a preseason game. He literally had 4 dunks, all off oops. So I'm like, dude, all Obi Toppin has to do is just roam the baseline. He's either going to be able to get those baseline threes like Bruce Bowen, or he's going to get dunks, just cut into the basket. And that's all and they just have him in that spot and just go back and forth baseline because he can hit the baseline 3. He's improved his shooting. So I think, Indiana's going to be a nice, fun team to watch. I want to see what they look like too. If they keep Buddy Hield or if they move him because he's been mentioned as getting moved. I think he's in the last year of his contract.
Yeah, I think with him, they might if they're fighting for a playoff spot, they're gonna find a way to keep him and see if they can just prove to him and try to do a sign and trade or something in the offseason. Because if you're fighting for a playoff spot and you trade him and you can't get anything that's a similar productive level back, then you're just saying we'll wait till next year, and then you waste your year with Bruce Brown and you waste another year of Miles Turner and Halliburton.
I agree. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Man, it's really there's 82 game season, but you really don't want to miss any games or let any games slip that you really need. Honestly, I just want to see this whole Harden situation resolved. I know everything else is kind of we saw Dame get moved, but I don't want to you gotta just do something with him. Either you send him home or you trade him, something. But yeah, that's the big storyline really entering the season.
Well, and that's the thing too, especially the story that came out about Houston saying that what he wants for his career is not in line with what they wanted. And I think that's hurting his trade value too, is because if he openly told his old team, I want to go back and get myself back to where I was, the MVP level. And they just say, if you're more worried about individual accomplishments and not worried about the team first, then we're not gonna trade away our future to bring you back into this situation. So I think that's why I think the Clippers are so hesitant to trade Terrence Mann too, is why would we give up one of our future stars for a guy who just wants to get his 30 points a game again?
Yep. saying that he hasn't been around the team, so he might be subject to a fine. But I just want to see that just get resolved. It's just like a bad cloud hanging over that franchise's head. And I didn't think they were going to do anything this year, anyways. But that just has to get resolved. I mean, he wants to force his way to the Clippers, but I don't even think the Clippers want him. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not, privy to that, but I mean, you see how he is in the playoffs, how he just disappears and he's inconsistent in the playoffs. I watched the playoff series last year, that series versus Boston. He looked good in game 1, and man, he just bad in game two, and man, I'm like, he just doesn't have that killer instinct in him. So
no, and the problem is there's some team that's just going to take the risk. Like think like, oh, the one thing we're missing is scoring, and they're just going to take the risk and say maybe he'll. It's almost like Kyrie, where every team is like maybe he'll stay and he'll not go AWOL randomly. Like it's. I think the problem is now is I've seen a lot of stuff like this is affecting, Joel Embiid and his future with the team. I know there was a couple of jokes of something like, oh, Joel Embiid's going to go join Jimmy in Miami, and I mean you got a team who, fumbled like 4 number 1 overall picks in a row, and they finally get the process through to get a competitive team, and then you can't seem to keep anyone with your star player.
Yeah.
So do you blame Joel? Do you blame the GM? Do you blame them bringing in players that are, have a history of this? Like what's going to happen? I think he gets traded before we reach 2024, or he just says, "Oh, I'm all in," and kind of BS's his way through this year.
Yeah,
and then repeat the cycle.
That's probably what he's going to do, but oh well. All right, so then we have 2 games tomorrow. Lakers in Denver, and then we have Phoenix and Golden State. Looks like Draymond Green will not be playing for Golden State, sprained his ankle, so that'll be interesting. I'm going to definitely try to tune in to as much as I can of both of those games. The late game might be kind of hard though if it's 9 o'clock, because I'm usually in bed by 10 or so. But yeah, here we are. I can't believe the NBA's starting back already. Feels like it gets earlier and earlier every year. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think a player to really watch this year is going to be. I think Devin Booker is going to have an MVP type season. I don't think he's going to win it because obviously the way Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid play, they're going to get that conversation. But when you look at the numbers when Booker played without Chris Paul last year with KD, his numbers were increasingly better for points and assists. So I think bringing him back to that point guard role is going to really help him. I'm high on him to have a career high in assists. I think he's going to have at least 7 a game this year. But look for Bradley Beal to struggle. I think that's going to be my big thing is he plays well off the ball, but he played well off the ball in the system that was catered around him. And now the system is catered to him being like the Chris Bosh of the big 3, the guy that he's going to give you like 15 to 20, and occasionally he's going to give you the big 40-point game, but he's going to be the third scorer, and it's going to take him some time to adjust to. I like the only thing I can see in my head is how Westbrook was with the Lakers, where he just had to keep taking bad shots to get his shots up so he could get into rhythm. So I think he might struggle to start the year, but really watch that Phoenix team. I think if this isn't the year, then they're going to have to really make some huge moves in the offseason to compete.
Yeah, I mean, they have limited resources and limited capital, but you can obviously finagle. We see that, like how they got rid of Ayton, but they put some good pieces around them. So yeah, and I will watch Booker. He averaged, I think it said 5.5 assists last year. So, and that was obviously playing with Chris Paul for majority of the year. He averaged 5.5 or 6 assists last year. So yeah, and I have seen his playmaking on display, which I kind of like. Like, I like so like he's a 2 guard, but he still like makes plays. I think his scoring to go down. I mean, I think it's going to go down naturally just because he's sharing the ball with KD and with Beal. Obviously, Beal's scoring is going to go down a lot, but I think that might be good for Bradley Beal because then pressure's not on you all that much, and maybe you can stay healthier and get through the season. But I know like Bradley Beal can still go off for 30 plus if they need him to. So really no shame being a third wheel in the Chris that Chris Bosh role because you're capable of stepping up and putting up big numbers, and especially if one of those guys is out, then you're instantly the man. So.
Yeah, and it's that hypothetical. Would you rather be the third option on a championship contending team, or would you rather be the go-to guy on a team winning 20 games?
I'd rather definitely take the championship.
Exactly, yeah. I'd rather the pressure's not on him as much. It's the same thing as like what Giannis said. He was like, "I've never been this open before in my life." I think it's going to be a good year for Beal, but I think the first couple of months he's going to struggle. It's going to be tough for him to find his shot, or it's going to be one of those things where they all want to help each other out and none of them want to take the shots. Like what we saw last year where there was too many times where like Booker was hot, but he knew if KD got hot, they would definitely be winning. So he was just cooling himself off to let KD get his shots up.
Yeah. I agree. Still so much to tell, man. I can't wait, but I mean, obviously the games have to start. And the NBA is not like the NFL, so it's not like a week-to-week thing. You want to watch teams over, spans. They'll, play spanning games, stuff like that. So, yeah, definitely look forward to see where we're at the next time we go back on the air. But I think we can call it here for tonight, unless you have anything else, Danny.
I was going to say, just check out our channel over at Gotham Gambling. And for frequency's sake, we're going to be posting our season-long Prize Pick future bet tomorrow around noon. And we're going to start a couple like betting challenges that we came up with this week as well. Last year, we were up over $500 with the basketball season. So we're going to try to see if we can hit $1,000 this year.
Nice. Definitely. I definitely would tap into it. I don't do a lot of sports betting, but I think I want to just do more player bets and stuff like that this year. I actually tried my first parlay last year too, and I can't remember how many of them I hit, like out of the 3, but those are fun. So definitely.
Oh yeah, it makes the game more fun. We used to go to all the Knicks games, and I think we made a joke that I only bet good when I was at the Knicks games because like we went to 20 games and I put like one like crazy like $10 to $500 parlay.
Yeah.
And like 18 of them would hit. 18 of them hit. I was like 18-2 on those. And I was like, I just need to go. I can only bet at Knicks games now.
All right. Wasn't mad at you. Wouldn't mind going to a Knicks game. Madison Square Garden would be something to take in.
Yeah, it's another level, man. We were at opening night. We were at an Atlanta game. We went to a Nets game. Like it's another level. It's they could be down 100 and they're still yelling like it's a 2-point game.
Yeah. I hear that. Well, thank you guys for joining us. As always, I'm Sam Odiemi, and that's Danny. This is another edition of Points in the Paint, and we will see you guys on our next go-around.